Hey, if you got, money in the bank, that money, it's false security. You should put your money to work and, give me your money and I'll give you a monthly return. Well, that can blow up. And it's a horrible thought to think that you're going to put your money, perhaps into somebody else's hand and then have them move forward and then pay you. You can take control of commercial real estate. You can move forward and get your starter property and then build upon that like a strong foundation and then build generational wealth. So a really strong foundation and then building a portfolio of generational wealth can put you into a situation where you can easily be a multimillionaire and also have your hand on the controls. It's all about control in this business.
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and I got a special treat for you today. I'm here live on the line with one of my favorite real estate investors in the country. His name is Terry Hale. Terry, are you there?
I sure am. How's it going, Richard?
Awesome. I have been working with Terry for a number of years, helping him with his organization. He does some really, really cool stuff with commercial real estate. So before we get too far into that, Terry, why don't you tell me a little bit about what your business is like now, both from what you do in the real estate space and then how you help people get into the real estate space. So sort of like both sides of your business, people can get an idea of what you do.
For sure. So first and foremost, for the last couple decades, I've been investing in commercial real estate. And commercial real estate is not big and scary. I'm not talking about big skyscrapers or any of these property types that are where you can't grab it and actually control it. Talking about the easy stuff. And what I've been doing is looking at these properties that are underperforming, owned by mom and pop. There's a reason and a story why they're selling. And I take them, I buy them with aggressive terms, sometimes creative terms like seller financing. Then I reposition them, and then I'll either keep them for cash flow or I will go ahead and off them to an end buyer and they want to create a portfolio, so they keep them. That's one end of the business that I've been doing. I've been doing it very successful and I have a very nice portfolio. I'm not talking about crazy syndication stuff or anything that's big and scary. Like I said, it's about actually owning and controlling commercial real estate. The second part to that business is about 15 years ago, so about 5 years into my career, after I mastered a systematic approach and doing it myself, I started teaching and started showing people how to do it. I put together 8 different curriculums of training that span across all aspects of commercial real estate investing for all property types. And what I'm doing, Richard, is I'm actually doing a huge give back and showing people how to get started in the business, and do also partner with clients as well.
Awesome. So how did you get started in as an entrepreneur, right? So I know, just because I know from talking to you that you got your fingers in all sorts of different businesses, real estate's your big one. But how, we talk on the show all the time about your origin story, right? Every hero has an origin story where you started to realize that you were different, that maybe you had superpowers and maybe you could use them to help other people. How did you find yourself on the entrepreneurial path?
So what I did was I was very intuitive, and I actually watched things happen. I watched what people are doing. I watched how people scale, how they grow. And then I understood quickly that, even though I felt like I had superpowers, and I do have superpowers, by the way, what I did understand also is that in order to scale, you do actually have to delegate, and you have to work along the same path with somebody by being able to not make them codependent, but truly make them independent. So what I'm doing is I take my superpowers, and what I'm doing is I'm actually just duplicating myself. And that's part of one of my big powers, that I take myself, I duplicate, and then I do it again and again and again. Now there's all these Terry Hales out there, and we're able to move forward and create an empire.
Awesome. So, has real estate been the only business that you've run so far, or have you done other things?
Yeah, I've done a lot of things. I've been in a bunch of different spaces. I've owned and ran internet marketing businesses, had different types of funnels set up, showing other entrepreneurs how they can actually have a book of credibility, because I've authored 8 different books and curriculums of training. So once I did that and I saw the flow of that, I thought to myself, you know what, why don't I go ahead and show people how to get their message out to the marketplace? So I'm a part of that. I've done a lifestyle business as well, which did wonderful. We had 3 retail stores that opened in Malibu. That was great. I bought and sold that business, created and sold that business. But yeah, my primary focus, what happened when I started looking at doing multiple things and having multiple streams of income, I always just go back to commercial real estate, because there's only so much time in a day. And for me, commercial is one of these things. Like, I'll give you an example. Over the last 30 days, our numbers are very strong. I've done a $204,000 take on one project and a $335,000 take on another. So those are just 2 projects within the last 30 days. And you just can't make that kind of money doing other things, as far as the way I see it. And again, this is not syndicating capital. This isn't moving any big and making huge moves. These are making strategic, very careful moves, but understanding exactly how to do it through a systematic approach.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of times your superpower. I want to talk a little bit about what your actual superpower is, what you do or build or offer this world that really helps solve problems for people. And the way I've been framing this for my guests is, like, if you look at all your skill sets that you've developed over the years, you really analyze them, you probably have one skill that sort of energizes or empowers the rest, right? Like your zone of genius. What is that for you that's really helped you do what you do in the real estate space?
I believe that it's more than just one. I think that I have several powers that are in my brain. And one of the things is mindset. And, you know, a lot of times we can put things in our head. We can listen to media like a current time right now, and we hear negative media, and all of a sudden we instantly can get into maybe a blue mood, or if it's gray outside, you can get into a blue mood. What I've always done is I've always just kept a clear mindset on what it is that I want to accomplish. But then second to that, it's how I put together my confidence and saying to myself, you know what, I can make this happen. I can go ahead and cross the T's, dot the I's. If someone else can do it, I can do it too. And there's a third, and my third is that my power is power of negotiation. So I've understood quickly that if I can work towards a mutual benefit and bridge that gap of this anti-social network, as I call it, that we're all about these days, of being a little bit more impersonal, maybe text messaging and emailing versus making a phone call, understanding the story on why somebody has a problem and identifying what that story is. My skill set and my power is really honing in and understanding their mindset and understanding what their problems are, and then solving their problem for that mutual benefit. And of course, I gain from that. So I believe that's a huge value add.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because they really tie together, right? If you understand your mindset and how to control your mindset and be in charge of your mindset, it helps you sort of see someone else's mindset, be able to put yourself in their shoes, which makes you a good negotiator. So just out of curiosity, do you have recommendations for people who might struggle with their mindset, whether they're in real estate or not, and they're growing a business? How do you take control of your mindset and use it to your advantage instead of have it being something that's holding you back?
Yeah, so a lot of times we're all natural problem solvers, and that right there is a problem, because, you know, what do they say? You only use like 10% of your brain, unless you're Einstein, right? I think you use more, of course, right?
Yeah.
But the average person only uses a portion of their brain. So now all of a sudden, us humans, we get bored fast, especially now with everybody with this thing going on and having to stay,
Absolutely.
right? Unless you're really enjoying yourself and you like yourself, right? And you're not around a lot of people, and you're in a space where you're actually growing in the mindset. But the problem is we're all natural problem solvers. So with that, it's also a disadvantage. And what I find is that people become worrywarts. Some people worry more. Some people create problems in their mindset. You know, you sit there and they start biting their fingernails, they start worrying about everything. And maybe you have been in a situation where you've really been concerned about the outcome of an event. And then all of a sudden it just naturally works itself out. 95% of the problems that we focus on never come to fruition because we're natural problem solvers, but we also create drama in our head. So what I do is I try to remain drama free, right? I limit my exposure to negativity, and I move so fast that negativity doesn't stick to me. And that's just the way I do things. Money likes speed, and I like money. So I ride its coattails. And that's the way I do my business, man. I move quick, and I stay positive.
Yeah, I love that. My wife always tells me that worrying is her most effective means of affecting her life, because if she worries about it, it never comes true. I always find that funny, right? Because we we do solve problems really well, and I love the concept of money loves speed. I always liked the inverse of that too. So money loves speed and wealth loves time, right? So if you can quickly get money, you can use time to create wealth, and those tie really well together with real estate because of things like appreciation and compounding interest and stuff like that, where if you can move quickly on deals and move quickly with negotiation, you can use that time to your advantage and create a lot of, I think, what you call generational wealth.
Correct. Yeah. And you know what? It's not just a one-time thing. It can be a rinse and repeat model. And what I found is that since we're dealing with mom and pop, and we're not dealing with this crazy, like I know all of you guys have heard about syndication, about how, hey, if you got, money in the bank, that money, it's false security. You should put your money to work and, give me your money and I'll give you a monthly return. Well, that can blow up. And it's a horrible thought to think that you're going to put your money, perhaps into somebody else's hand and then have them move forward and then pay you. You can take control of commercial real estate. You can move forward and get your starter property and then build upon that like a strong foundation and then build generational wealth. So a really strong foundation and then building a portfolio of generational wealth can put you into a situation where you can easily be a multimillionaire and also have your hand on the controls. It's all about control in this business.
Absolutely. So just from a tactical perspective, for someone who's looking at commercial real estate and they maybe have been looking at single family or looking at other things, and they might have a little bit of money, maybe they got their stimulus check sitting in their pocket they just got from the crisis. Is there like a minimum sort of like cash on hand you would need in order to, I don't know, put, earnest money down or put down payments or get your hands into the commercial real estate business? Is this like, if I don't have $1 million in the bank, I can't do it? Or is it something that you can do with less cash on hand in order to actually like get into that business?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And it's a misconception across the board because people see, folks talking about commercial real estate and how you have to have like an 800 plus FICO score because you're going to give your personal credit. Then you have to have 20 or 30% to put down. And then you also have to have cash reserves. And then you have to have marketing money and money to keep it stabilized. And that's so far from the truth. So there's a few different ways to do it, Richard. If you're going to be just talking about tying up property and wholesaling it, like I've been doing, like I said, over the last 30 days, had 2 takes, a 204 and a $355,000 take. Both of those projects, it only took an actual EMD, which is an earnest money deposit. And those earnest money deposits are as low as $1,000 up to just a couple $1,000s. And they're not at risk. They're applied to the purchase price at closing and they're fully refundable. So they never go hard. And then since you're going to be assigning the contract, somebody else replaces their earnest with your earnest, so you get your money back. And then whatever price point you tack on top of the dollar amount that you locked it in for, right? You're going to put your money on top. So if you put a couple $100,000 on top of it, well, at closing, then you get the couple $100,000 that comes to either your personal name or entity, however it's structured. That's one way to do the business. The second way, if you're actually going to be closing it for long-term hold, one way is a wholesale, the next one is a long-term hold. You're going to be putting down anywhere from 10% to 20%. Typically, we never go over 20%. But at that point, we do use OPM, which is other people's money. And what we do is we actually give equity versus debt. So we don't create this debt structure where we're giving a return on the money. We just say, hey, you know what? Someone over here, they have, say, we're going to get into a deal with 10% down and it's $1 million purchase price and we need that 100,000 down. We'll go ahead and bring that money in and we'll give an exchange for equity. So somebody may come in with an additional cash reserve. So maybe if we come in, say, for 150 or 175,000, and we give a percentage of the deal to them. So now they're actually a limited partner. They're on the operating agreement of the LLC. They actually have ownership of the project. And then we move it forward, reposition it, and sell it, and everybody gets paid. Everybody makes money. So great deal.
Does a transaction like that, when you actually bring the outside investor in as an equity partner, does that keep you out of the SEC regulations that are required when you start doing the I can't remember the name that you used a minute ago, the
syndication?
Syndication, yeah.
Yeah, because at this point, you have a relationship with this individual. They must be an accredited investor, which means that they meet a rule. They either have $1 million in net worth or over 200,000 in income. And if anybody wants to know more about that, you can Google the 3-in-1 rule for accredited investors. But yeah, you have a relationship with that person and they're coming in as a limited partner. So it gets away from that big, scary syndication stuff that maybe you guys have heard some of the buzz going on, but it's definitely not a space that I'm comfortable in, nor I would ever want to be in. This is about working with individual people for a mutual benefit. This isn't some pie in the sky, big pro forma future value, here, let's get in on it now. It's going to be worth so much more money. It's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing, Richard. We're buying on the as-is value today and understanding exactly what the projection of year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 looks like. But since we're purchasing it so aggressive, we can get in on these deals for the right price, and we do have value add scenario.
Absolutely. So curious question, just in light of everything that's going on, how has your strategy changed in your business from being in a booming economy to now being in what is essentially a shutdown economy and most likely over the next few months a recession, even if it's a minor recession? How does that change your strategy in real estate, or has it changed it at all?
Yeah, it absolutely has changed. And that's the thing, if it doesn't change, then, your BS detector might go off, right? Because it's like, what do you mean? Nothing changes in business. You're not doing anything different. Everyone's going to do something different in business, whether it's going to be the tone that you use or the message that you give somebody or a strategy like in my business. So before this happened, typically the way it works is 70% of my business is building a portfolio long-term hold, right? And then 30% was wholesaling. Now it's 70% wholesaling, 30% portfolio hold. So it just flip-flopped, and that's just kind of a rough average of how we're, on a percentage basis of how we're doing this business. But see, I'm also working with different property types as well. There's a lot of people out there in the commercial space that are talking about multifamily, on how great multifamily is. Well, right now, multifamily is not a great investment, because when people are just living off that stimulus check, which is very small, by the way, they need to add zeros to that check. But if they're living off of that check, or they're being affected in a positive light from that check, chances are they're not going to be paying their bill, right, to live in the house or apartment. So what I find is that properties like self-storage, where you're only talking about a $35 or $60 or $100 bill to keep all of their stuff, especially if they happen to downsize during the downturn recession. Self-storage is a very profitable property type, and it is recessionary proof, along with several others. If you look at it, there's also mobile home parks that are also recessionary proof because it's more affordable housing than apartments. And there's also RV parks. For anybody who's ever stayed in an RV park, that it's not a big expense to pay a bill and be able to, live in that space, as long as you have, your mobile, your mobile unit. So there's all kinds of benefits to it, for the right property type.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting because, we travel full time, and my audience all knows that. And, when they put all the states on sort of, shelter in place and lockdown and whatnot, we picked a park in Paradise and just paid for the month and stayed, right? Because it's inexpensive, and it's a good way to, to just stop and not travel while everything is sort of going crazy. But yeah, so the property types you've been working in during this sort of crisis have been self-storage, RV parks, and what was the last one?
Mobile home parks.
Mobile home parks. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to sort of hear a little bit about how your business works. What I want to talk a little bit about is we talk about this all the time, is that the flip side of your superpower is your fatal flaw, right? So just like Superman has his kryptonite, or Batman's not actually a superhero, he's just, a ninja. What is something that you have struggled with in growing your business that you've had to work on yourself that's held you back a little bit? I think more importantly, how have you worked on it so someone who's listening who might struggle from something similar might learn a little bit from you?
Right. So, admitting, a negative, that's fine. I get it. It's humbling. So where has it been a struggle? Where is it? I mean, when I'm nailing deals like I've nailed in the last 30 days, it's hard for me to say that I have, some immediate flaws.
You're like, I'm rocking it now.
I'm rocking it. But, I think that the growth of delegating and finding the right people can be a struggle. And, fortunately, Richard, I found you to help out with a lot of marketing stuff and internet stuff. And, you know, when you find somebody good, you want to hold on to those people. And it's real important that you actually connect with people that can actually do things and do things the right way. Because if there's a bunch of things that have holes in them and they're broken, and then you sit there and you're going to throw money or time at it, because time is money. So it doesn't matter if you're setting up marketing funnels and you're throwing money at them, or you're like me and we're setting up a good look and feel and showing credibility in what we do. And if the message isn't right, or like I said, if the call to action's wrong or sense of urgency is wrong, it's all got to be the right flow. So I would say that the biggest challenge is just connecting and finding all those right people and delegating responsibility and staying on top of them. And, you know, like I said, my power is to identify. So I have basically 6 steps in my business model, which is to find deals, pre-screen them, evaluate, structure, negotiate, and facilitate. And that's what brings in the money for me. So I can't do everything, right? Even though I have superpowers, I can't do everything. So you have to delegate. So I would say finding all the right people for all the right, you know, jobs is probably one of the most difficult things in business. And I think that's hand in hand for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that was a big struggle for me, where for years I ran my business by myself. And it was, you realize that you can't wear all of the hats, right? You can't do all of the things yourself, because you'll never grow. It'll keep you held back. And when you do find the right people, you can grow your business significantly, right? Which is it's a cool place to be in your business.
Yep.
So my next question for you is something I call your common enemy, right? So this is, if you could remove one thing from your client's life that you think is holding them back, right? And I think for the purpose of this discussion, let's talk about the people that you work with to educate them about commercial real estate. Something that you sort of run into all the time with people who are trying to get into this space, mindsets that are holding them back, that if you could just wave your magic wand, your students would get better results quicker, faster, because they changed that thing. What is that common enemy that you sort of bang your head against the wall all the time with?
Yeah, so we're constantly doing that. So we look at deal flow 3 times a week. We do it on Mondays. And when we do Mondays, we call that like the open session. So we look at all the deal flow that people have brought in over the weekend. And sometimes there could be, you know, 100 deals in the pipeline, or something as little as maybe a couple dozen. And then what we do is we go through those projects, we categorize them, and then we have something called Whack It Wednesday. And if it doesn't make the cut, it gets whacked, right? And then we have Fabulous Friday. And Fabulous Friday is when we've already gone through the week and we've made the calls, we've done our due diligence, and at that point we're negotiating projects and putting them together for the next week. So it's extremely efficient. But I'll use my little whiteboard behind me really quick, if I may. Can you see the whiteboard okay? So
Yeah, I can.
part of what I do when I'm looking at a property, by the way, all commercial real estate in my world is just a box. That's all it really is. You know, a house is a box, right? Multifamily, there's a bunch of houses inside a big box. Self-storage, there's a bunch of small boxes. It's like apartments without the people, but they're all just a box. And every one of my clients, when they come through, what they want to look at is the upside of income. So now when they see that the property's filled, then obviously there's more money, right? Pretty basic, right? But what they don't realize is that we're buying it here, this dollar amount, and we're buying it filled up all the way, that there's no room for upside. It's lack of upside. So what I'm trying to teach all my clients is that we need to buy amongst this threshold of anywhere between 30 to say 40%. And if we can buy at 30 to 40%, now we realize all of this upside to make the money. And I just have a lot of clients that want it to happen so fast. And they follow my guidance, because money likes speed, and I like speed. And like we just said, building generational wealth. But if I could change the mindset of every one of my clients, it would be to focus on the problematic properties where people have to sell, not just want to sell. Everybody wants to sell to get a payday. There's no hidden agenda there. Everybody wants a payday, right? In every business. But if we can focus on the problematic ones, that it's apparent that, hey, there is upside and we can make money. If I could change that mindset in all of my clients, then together we could build exponential wealth, amazing generational wealth together.
Awesome. I think that's actually a really good tie-in to the flip side of that question, right? So if you're fighting against this misunderstanding of where you want to buy your properties, that's the common enemy that you fight against. Your driving force is the thing that you fight for, right? So just like Spider-Man fights to save New York, or Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you guys fight for in your real estate education company?
what do we fight for? Like, what's
Your mission.
our main goal? What's our mission statement? Our mission statement is to join forces. And by joining forces, we create synergy. Because with business that we do, 1 and 1 does not equal 2, it equals 3. And by the power of numbers and working together and me duplicating myself, it's not just about one pie. It's about me getting a piece of the pie and everybody getting a piece of the pie, and everybody eats and we grow and scale. And that's the one thing we fight for, is constant growth.
Awesome. So when it comes to that, I'm sort of getting a picture from the way you're talking here, that when you bring in students to teach them how to do this, you're actually not bringing them in and just teaching them and throwing them off on their own. You're teaching them and having them sort of become part of your, I don't know if organization is the right word, but you're helping them close and find and negotiate these deals and doing them together.
Right. So again, there's 6 steps of my process. It's define, pre-screen, evaluate. So we stop right there. So when a client comes in and they actually learn the business and we speak the same language, we teach them how to find, how to pre-screen, and how to evaluate. Then myself and my team, we structure the deal, we put it together, then we negotiate the deal, and then we move it forward and we actually facilitate it and bring in the team. So the team runs it. We delegate. We don't do management. We have an asset management company, but that just oversees the actual little foot soldiers that are on the ground running around actually managing the property. So we're able to do everything virtual from your home, from your computer, from your phone. You don't have to jump on a stinky airplane and go fly around and look at property. And the way my structure works is it's a 3-entity tier structure. There's 3 actual LLCs. There's a holding LLC that's in state specific where the property's located. And then if you become a client, that's you, and then this would be me and my team. The way it works is if you're a client, we're all connected to the mothership that owns the property in the state specific, and then you get 50%, and then we get 50% under a LP, which stands for limited partnership. Very seamless flow, very easy to understand, a very simple structure. So now they eat, we eat, everybody eats, and that's how we grow and we scale, and we get away from that crazy syndication stuff. I provide all the heavy lifting. I bring in the capital. I bring in the asset management team. We complete the due diligence. We help negotiate the project. We do it all. So what the client's job or their work would be is to learn it, speak the same language, and actually source the projects. And together, that's that synergy. That's that 1 + 1 = 3. That's the synergy that we bring. And we can scale and grow together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that gives you like an ability to create like an army of property finders who are creating, you're doing all these deals together all over the place. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So
a well-respected army, by the way,
talk a little
all about integrity, a very well and appreciated a clientele base.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about some practical things, right? So we call this our hero's tool belt, right? Maybe you got a big magical hammer like Thor, or a bulletproof vest like your neighborhood police officer. What are some of the tools you use in your business that you couldn't do what you do without them, right? So maybe this is something like, everything from, using Zoom for calls or your cell phone, or something that you do with client management. What are some of the tools, the practical tools that sort of make your real estate business run?
All right. Now, I consider myself one of my superhero powers that I forgot about was that I'm a little artistic. So being that, and I'm systematic, I put together something so amazing. I call it the property pre-screening form. And this property pre-screening form gives me all the detailed information that we need to know. And then once you have the trained eye for it, again, positive mindset with the trained eye, because you've harnessed that knowledge, you can literally look at these property pre-screening sheets and within literally minutes, I'm not talking 60 minutes or 120 minutes, I'm talking within a time frame of say 5 minutes to 10 minutes, look at all the detailed information, which is simple to get because these brokers are salespeople and sellers are salespeople. So they want to give you that information so you can make a conscious, educated decision whether you're going to pass or play on the deal. So once we get that information, what we do is we put it on the property pre-screening form, and that is one of the tools that we use. And I have a second tool that's super powerful as well. You see, everything that we do has this seamless flow from when we gather the information on the pre-screening form to when we are on the phone now, because we have the intel to make an intelligent conversation. We simply casually discuss the opportunity with the seller. Now that conversation, we take detailed notes, and that conversation goes and gets put onto something called a letter of intent. And that is actually our offer. That's our blueprint for the contract. So two things. One is the property pre-screening form, and the second thing is letter of intent. I have over a dozen letters of intent that span across every tactic and every situation, from wholesaling to long-term holds, to seller financing, to escalation of interest clauses, to subordination, to release of land clauses when we deal with land, all different types, and I could keep going. So these tools are put down into a simple form, and that definitely is superhero stuff on the tool belt, I'll tell you, Richard.
Absolutely. I remember the first time you explained subordination to me, I think my mind might have exploded, because I didn't know you could even do things like that.
Right. Right. You're like, okay, here I am.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, that was really cool. Subordinated seconds and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So my next question for you has to do with your own personal heroes, right? So just like Frodo has Gandalf, or Luke has Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Robert Kiyosaki has Rich Dad, who were some of your heroes? Were they real life mentors, peers who were a couple of years ahead of you, or speakers, authors, and how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in your real estate business?
Well, I'd say my number one hero would be my father, who recently just passed away. It was one of those things where he taught me lessons, possibly without even knowing that he was teaching me a lesson. And it's super great to, as I mentioned before, to be intuitive and to understand that. I remember when I was doing construction one time, and I picked up a 70-pound jackhammer, and I walked over to it. And this is when I was 15 years old. I probably weighed about 120 pounds wet. And I picked up the 70-pound jackhammer, and I hit the button on it, and pat, 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 and it flew me back, and I landed right flat on my back. And my father walked over, and he picked up the jackhammer, he held it with one hand, and he hit it, pulled it back up with two hands, dropped it in one hand, hit it, and breaking up all this concrete. And he said to me, he goes, "See, you don't know." And I said, "I don't know what?" And he said, "How to work the tool." He said, "Always learn how to work the tool, or the tool will work you." And that's really important to me, these kind of like life lessons and understanding that. By the way, I never went back to construction after that. I went back to pushing a pen across paper. But my point being is like little lessons like that, where it's like, okay, so I need to learn it before I can do it. That's really powerful. So I'd say my first hero is my father. Second to that, I've been following the likes of Mr. Warren Buffett for many years. And Warren made his money later in life, if any of you know that. But I quote a lot of Buffettisms, and Mr. Warren Buffett uses very profound words like, we look for 7-inch bars to step over, not 7-foot bars to jump over. And that makes a lot of sense, because you could easily get into a problematic situation, or you can get into a situation with speed and ease. And so I would call him a life hero as well. I'm not following any stock advice at this time, because I'm doing the commercial real estate thing, as all of you should as well. I encourage you to. But there it is.
Absolutely. And I always found it interesting too, how often people who have, the successful careers in wherever it is they're doing, they always have a mentor or two who taught them life lessons. And I always like to bring that up. It's like, you probably, those people don't even know that they're heroes to you. Your dad might, or might have when he was around, but the people that you're in your life that are heroes to you don't always know. Right. And that's why I know you hold integrity and the ability to, lift up the people in your life as a very high value. And there's probably a lot of people that look up to you as a hero as well, which is cool. So I've always found that sort of like that juxtaposition really fascinating, that we all have heroes. So
I actually had a guy not that long ago, his name's Leslie, mentioned that I was his hero, and I helped him with all my trainings, and he watched a lot of my webinars, because I host live webinars every week. And he was able to move forward and actually close a project and make over $300,000, which actually saved his situation, because he was out of work and he had a young family, and he was able to, learn what I was teaching and grasp it and be able to take some action. And he had the confidence, probably because he was backed into a corner, and, just mustered up the confidence and went out there and started punching until he became a superhero himself. And he actually said, "Hey, I'm looking up to you. You're my hero." And I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, that's awesome. It's always cool when you get a confirmation, because not everyone gets that. So I want to bring it home for our listeners and talk a little bit about your guiding principles, right? Top 1 or 2 principles or actions that you put into place every day in your business that you think contribute to the success and influence that you enjoy today. Maybe something you wish you'd known when you started out 15 years ago in the real estate space.
Yeah. So, I always say, I've always coined the phrase of take action and just keep up, because action causes reaction. And I just wish that I had that, somebody to inspire me to not just never give up, but really to get out there and to take the necessary action. And it's one thing to be doing something, but if something's not actually producing results, then it's really worthless. Like, hey, if no one was around and a tree fell in the forest, did the tree fall in the forest approach, right? So if you were doing something and there's no results and you're sitting in the office all day long and there's nothing that actually transpired, you didn't make any headway, are you really doing the best for yourself, for your family? And so if someone gave me that advice early on, I would have loved to take that principle and be able to have it, because, I'm turning 47 this year. I know I don't look it, but turning 47 this year. And, I always say that I'm an overnight success. It only took me 20 years to get here. But if I have any young listeners on the phone, young or old, whatever have you, your future self will thank you for the seed that you plant today. And that's just where it's at. Get out there and do something that's going to produce results. And that's something that we practice day in and day out. It's part of our principles while we're here. And we're transactioneers. Actually, one of my clients, they loved us so much they actually brought this. I'll read it to you. It says, absolutely no admittance, transactioneers only beyond this point. When you walk into my office, it's up on the glass wall, because I always talk about being a transactioneer. And what that does is it takes me away from wasting my time doing things that I'm overqualified to do. And a lot of your clients and listeners here, Richard, maybe they're overqualified and they need to understand how to delegate responsibility out so they focus on what they do best. And that's something that's a principal value here that we practice, is just to focus on being transactioneers and let the due diligence people do that, let the management team do that, let everybody else do what they're supposed to do, focus on what we do best.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things that fascinated me, because I know I've helped you go through some of your trainings, and we've done some of your challenge stuff together, is like when you talk about like taking action in the commercial real estate space, we're not talking like storming the beaches of Normandy action here. We're talking like picking up the phone and calling a broker who wants to talk to you, right? It's not like the scariest stuff in the world. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of businesses that have more difficult actions to take. But for whatever reason, real estate seems to be something that people are scared of the action that it takes in real estate. I think probably because, the numbers are big and scary. So they're like, the little actions that lead to those big numbers are scary as well.
I think it's three things. The first thing is that it's commercial real estate. So you got to be this big mogul to be able to get into commercial real estate. That's just the way media is portrayed.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the second thing is credit. You think you have to have perfect credit. Just for the record, so everybody understands, I've only personally guaranteed one commercial property in my entire life, and it was an $8 million plus deal. That was a little larger. And I'll tell you what, I didn't sleep so good at night, just noting that I was on the hook for that. I sold that property, so it's no longer in my portfolio. But ever since then, and this was very early on in my career when that happened, just several years into it, I vowed that I'm never going to give a personal guarantee again. So everything that I do is called non-recourse basis, which does not require your personal credit. So regardless of where your credit's at, you do not need to have any credit to do this business, because everything is done on a non-recourse basis. And then, so it's big and scary, the credit thing, and then the money thing. And getting money in this day and age, I always say I got deep pockets, but I got short arms. But because I practice what I preach, right? Nobody likes a hypocrite, so I practice what I preach. But the fact is, there's zero shortage of money, even in a time like now. People are hoarding their money. They're keeping it real close. And commercial real estate is one of those things where you can touch it, see it, sometimes smell it. And the fact is, if you have your hands on the gears and you're controlling it, there's really no better place to put your money, as long as you're keeping control of that. And that's something really important. So I have something called the Buyers Club. And if anybody's interested, they can check that out on my website too. There's a link there, and they can see that they can join my Buyers Club. There's zero cost for it. And you can take a look at deals that we have when they come up. And, it's there for you to deploy your capital and take advantage of huge discounts, and seller finance terms from time to time, and huge upside. Create your portfolio. Get started.
Awesome. So that basically wraps up our interview. Thank you so much for coming on. I got one last thing we do on the show every time. We call it the Heroes Challenge. Heroes Challenge is really simple. And it's basically this. Do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come on the Hero Show and share their story with our audience?
Cool. So I do have a guy. His name is Jeff, and what Jeff has done is something different than what I have done. And he has wholesaled land. And I think that he's got superhero powers because he has the ability to take something that's not income producing and being able to have a way to take it and turn it and make money. And I think that is really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll reach out later, see if we can get him on the show as well, get him to share his story. Last thing we want to do, Terry, is find out where can people find you if they're interested in learning your process, your 6-step process, and maybe becoming part of that army and doing some deals with you. Where can they find out about that? If they're interested, maybe they have cash now and they're interested in getting real estate, but they want to maybe put those into some of the deals that you guys are doing with your people. Where can they find all that information? And who are the right types of people to reach out?
Got it. So I'll cover the first part and then I'll let them know where they can find me. The right person is to someone who's got a invest in myself mindset. Like I said, we're not just talking capital, it's also time. And one of these things, it's like they always have this old saying, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Meaning you can do everything that you can possible, encourage somebody to do something, but you can't make them do it. They have to have the relentlessness for success. They have to have the willingness. And that's somebody that really is a good fit for us. We work with people that are decisive, people that want to go ahead and move at a fast pace, people that are comfortable at their own home, just working with a phone and a computer, that can see themselves locating a project, pre-screening it, doing the evaluation, speaking the same language, getting it to us, and then working with the team. You got to be a team player. And for that, if that's you, great. You can go to Terry Hale, that's TerryHale.com. There's some great webinar training that's at no cost. Just invest your time in that, check it out, and we'll see if you're a fit. And if so, we jump on a call together and have a casual chat. So I appreciate being here, Richard, and thank you so much for having me on. As you can see, I am a superhero. So look forward to turning your listeners into superheroes.
Did you have those superhero glasses still? You should show the audience your superhero glasses.
Here, in signing off, I'm going to be flying in. Hang on, here I go.
There you go.
Right on.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Terry. Really appreciate it. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience here before we hit that stop record button?
Yeah, I do. You know what? Right now, there's going to be more multi-millionaires made from this recession that's upon us. So I highly encourage you to take action today. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. It starts with a little bit of action. Go to terryhale.com and get started. Come and check us out. And I appreciate all of you. Take care and be safe. Thanks again, Richard. Appreciate being here.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on, Terry. Really appreciate your time.